Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where we make ancient wisdom work for modern life. I'm here to help you discover how the greatest philosophers in history can solve the problems you're facing right now, today, in the real world. If you're watching this, chances are you feel stuck. Maybe you're scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., wondering how your life got so off track. Maybe you're staring at your reflection, thinking about all the promises you've broken to yourself. Maybe you're just tired of feeling like you're drifting instead of living with purpose. Here's what I want you to know. You're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius sat in his tent on the Germanic frontier, writing in his journal. He was the most powerful man in the world, yet he was struggling with the same feelings you have right now. He called himself a beast, a monkey, lamenting how far he'd fallen from the person he knew he could be. But then he wrote something that should give us all hope. In a week, you can be a god if you rediscover your beliefs, if you recommit to philosophy. Think about that. 7 days. That's all it takes to transform from feeling like your worst self to becoming the person you're truly capable of being. The Stoics understood something we've forgotten in our modern world, obsessed with quick fixes and life hacks. Real change doesn't come from motivation or inspiration. It comes from building the right habits, day after day, until they become as natural as breathing. Marcus Aurelius had a phrase that cuts right to the heart of personal transformation. Be your own savior while you can. Nobody else is coming to rescue you. Your boss isn't going to suddenly become reasonable. Your family isn't going to stop being complicated. The economy isn't going to magically fix your financial stress. The only person who can save you is you, and the time to start is right now. In today's video, I'm going to share 8 specific habits that the Stoic philosophers used to build unshakable mental strength, find clarity in chaos, and create lives of genuine purpose and meaning. These aren't abstract philosophical concepts you'll forget by tomorrow. These are practical, daily actions you can start implementing immediately. We'll explore how physical exercise builds mental toughness in ways that will surprise you. You'll discover why asking for help is actually the strongest thing you can do. We'll talk about reading in a way that actually changes your brain, not just fills your time. You'll learn the simple walking habit that can solve problems you didn't even know you had. But most importantly, you'll walk away with a complete system for rebuilding yourself from the inside out, just like Marcus Aurelius did during those dark nights on the frontier. The ancient Stoics believed that within each of us lies the potential for greatness, waiting to be awakened. Today, we're going to wake it up together. Habit 1. Build mental toughness through daily exercise. Picture Sarah, a 32-year-old marketing director in downtown Chicago. Every morning, her alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m., and every morning, she hits snooze 3 times before dragging herself out of bed. By the time she gets to her office on Michigan Avenue, she already feels defeated. Her boss dumps impossible deadlines on her desk. Her team seems unmotivated. And by 3 p.m., she's questioning every decision she's ever made. Sound familiar? Sarah's story is playing out in offices across America right now. But here's what Sarah doesn't realize. Her morning defeat is programming her entire day for weakness. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern fitness culture has completely missed. When Seneca wrote about physical training, he wasn't talking about six-pack abs or Instagram photos. He was talking about forging an unbreakable mind. We treat the body rigorously, Seneca explained, so that it is not disobedient to the mind. This wasn't about vanity for the Stoics. This was about power, the power to do what you say you'll do, when you say you'll do it, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Think about the last time you really wanted to quit something but pushed through anyway. Maybe it was finishing a workout when your legs felt like concrete. Maybe it was completing a project when your brain felt like mush. In that moment of pushing through, you discovered something profound. You're capable of more than you think you are. The Stoics were warriors, athletes, and leaders who understood that physical practice was a metaphor for mental strength. Marcus Aurelius wrestled and hunted. Epictetus lifted weights. Cleanthes was a boxer. These weren't gym bros trying to look good at the beach. These were philosophers building the mental muscle that says, I can do hard things. When you commit to daily physical practice, you're not just improving your cardiovascular health or building muscle mass. You're training your mind to override the voice that says, it's too cold, I'm too tired, I don't want to. You're building your capacity to choose discipline over comfort, action over excuses. Let's get back to Sarah. What if instead of hitting snooze, she got up and did 20 push-ups right there beside her bed? What if she walked to work instead of taking the L? What if she used her lunch break for a quick workout instead of scrolling through social media? Here's what would happen. Every time Sarah chose physical discomfort over mental weakness, she'd be depositing strength into her mental bank account. When her boss threw another impossible deadline at her, she'd have the inner resources to stay calm and strategic instead of panicking. When her team seemed unmotivated, she'd have the energy to lead by example instead of just complaining. The Stoics called this mens sana in corpore sano, a sound mind in a sound body. They understood that these two things aren't separate. They're completely interconnected. When you neglect your body, you're weakening your mind. When you challenge your body, you're strengthening your mental resilience. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. It's not about the specific exercise you choose. It's about the daily commitment to do something that's uncomfortable, something that requires you to push past that initial resistance. Maybe for you, it's waking up 10 minutes earlier to do stretches. Maybe it's taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe it's doing jumping jacks during commercial breaks. The specific activity matters less than the daily practice of choosing strength over weakness. Seneca used to throw himself into the freezing Tiber River on New Year's Day, not because he enjoyed being cold and miserable, but because he was training his mind to do difficult things on purpose. He was building what psychologists now call stress inoculation, the ability to stay calm and focused under pressure. When you develop a consistent physical practice, you're creating a daily opportunity to prove to yourself that you can keep promises to yourself. You're building evidence that you're the kind of person who does what they say they'll do. This confidence carries over into every other area of your life. Think about the most mentally tough people you know. I guarantee they have some form of physical practice in their lives. It might not be CrossFit or marathon running. It might just be walking their dog every morning or doing yoga in their living room. But they have something that regularly puts their body under controlled stress, so their mind learns how to respond to all forms of stress. The habit is simple. Choose one physical activity that challenges you and do it every single day for the next 7 days. Could be as simple as doing 10 burpees when you wake up, or as complex as following a structured workout routine. The key is consistency over intensity. Here's what you're really building: the mental muscle that says, I'm in charge here. When life throws chaos at you, and you'll have trained your nervous system to stay steady. When you face difficult decisions, you'll have the internal strength to choose what's right over what's easy. Ultimately, this habit isn't about transforming your body, though that might happen too. It's about transforming your relationship with discomfort. It's about proving to yourself every single day that you're capable of more than you think you are. Habit 2. Ask for help to become unstoppable. Consider this scenario. Michael, a 28-year-old startup founder in Manhattan, sits in his cramped midtown office at 11 p.m., staring at a financial projection that makes no sense. His company is bleeding money, his investors are asking tough questions, and he has no idea how to fix the pricing model that seemed brilliant 6 months ago. His phone buzzes with texts from friends asking if he wants to grab drinks. But Michael can't leave. He's convinced that if he just works harder, stays later, and pushes through alone, he'll figure it out. 3 months later, Michael's startup shuts down. Here's the tragedy. 2 blocks away, there's a co-working space full of entrepreneurs who've solved the exact same pricing problems. Down the street, there's a former Goldman Sachs analyst who could have fixed Michael's financial projections in 20 minutes. In his contact list, there's a mentor who's been waiting for months for Michael to ask a single question. But Michael never asked for help, and his pride cost him everything. Marcus Aurelius understood something that Michael missed completely. In his meditations, the Roman emperor shared one of the most powerful military analogies in all of Stoic philosophy. Like a soldier storming a wall, you have a mission to accomplish, and if you've been wounded and you need a comrade to pull you up, so what? So what? Those 2 words carry enormous weight. Marcus Aurelius is saying that needing help isn't shameful, isn't weakness, and isn't something to hide. It's just part of accomplishing the mission. It's expected. It's normal. It's smart. Think about this. When your friends come to you for advice, how do you respond? You probably feel honored that they trust you enough to share their struggles. You likely drop everything to help them because you care about their success. You don't think less of them for asking, you think more of them for being brave enough to be vulnerable. So why do we torture ourselves by refusing to ask for the same help we gladly give others? The Stoics believed deeply in community and mutual aid. They understood that individual strength comes through collective wisdom. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule the Roman Empire alone. He surrounded himself with advisors, generals, and philosophers who could see what he couldn't see. Seneca had mentors and students. Epictetus taught in schools where questions were encouraged, not seen as signs of ignorance. These weren't weak men leaning on others. These were some of history's strongest thinkers who understood that asking for help is actually refusing to give up. Let's imagine a different version of Michael's story. What if, when he first noticed the pricing problems, he'd send a simple email to that Goldman Sachs analyst? Hey, I'm struggling with something in your area of expertise. Could I buy you coffee and get your thoughts? What if he'd posted in the startup founder group chat? Has anyone dealt with pricing model issues? I could use some perspective. Here's what would have happened. Michael would have solved his pricing problem in a week instead of watching his company die over 3 months. He would have built relationships with other entrepreneurs facing similar challenges. He would have established himself as someone smart enough to know what he doesn't know. But most importantly, he would have learned that asking for help isn't an admission of failure. It's a prerequisite for success. The habit of seeking help requires overcoming 3 mental barriers that keep us stuck. First, there's pride. I should be able to figure this out myself. Second, there's fear of rejection. What if they say no or think I'm stupid? Third, there's the burden assumption. I don't want to bother them with my problems. Here's how the Stoics would address each barrier. Pride is just ignorance wearing a fancy outfit. The smartest people in any field got there by learning from people who knew more than they did. Fear of rejection is fear of a tiny social discomfort that lasts 5 minutes, while staying stuck in your problem creates massive life discomfort that lasts months or years. And the burden assumption? Most successful people love sharing their knowledge with someone who's genuinely eager to learn and implement their advice. The ancient Stoics had a concept called sympathia, the idea that we're all connected and that helping each other makes everyone stronger. When you ask for help, you're not taking something from someone. You're giving them an opportunity to contribute to something meaningful. Let's get practical. Start small this week. Think of one problem you've been wrestling with alone. It could be a work challenge, a relationship issue, a financial question, or a skill you want to develop. Now identify one person who might have experience in that area. Send them a brief, specific message. I'm working on X challenge and I know you have experience with Y. Would you be willing to share your perspective? I'd be happy to buy you coffee or schedule a brief call. Notice what happens when you send that message. First, you'll probably feel vulnerable and nervous. That's normal, you're being brave. Second, you'll likely be surprised by how willing people are to help. Most successful people remember when they needed help, and they're eager to pay it forward. The key is being specific about what you need and respectful of their time. Don't ask for general advice about everything. Ask for specific insights about specific challenges. Don't demand immediate responses or lengthy commitments. Offer to work around their schedule and make it easy for them to help you. Habit 3. Read smart books that actually change you. Visualize this. Jessica, a 35-year-old product manager in Los Angeles, proudly posts her annual reading goal on social media, 50 books this year. She speeds through romance novels during her commute, listens to business audiobooks while doing dishes, and devours self-help titles before bed. By December, she hits her goal and feels accomplished. But when her boss asks her to lead a major product launch, Jessica realizes something disturbing. Despite reading 50 books, she has no idea how to actually manage a complex project. Despite consuming dozens of leadership books, she still freezes up in difficult conversations. Despite reading every productivity hack ever written, she's still overwhelmed and scattered. Jessica fell into the modern trap of treating reading like a numbers game instead of a transformation tool. Epictetus would have looked at Jessica's reading habit and said exactly what he told his own students. I'm not impressed knowing that you read. I'm not even impressed if they read all night long. I need to know what the focus of this energy is. I need to know what you're reading. The great Stoic teacher understood something we've forgotten in our age of information overload. It's not how much you read. It's what you read and how deeply you engage with it. Seneca, who was one of the most prolific writers in history, warned that too many good minds have been ruined by the pointless enthusiasm for useless knowledge. He wasn't against learning. He was against mindless consumption that creates the illusion of growth without any actual development. Think about the last 10 books you read. How many specific ideas can you remember? How many concepts have you actually implemented in your daily life? How many insights have genuinely changed the way you think or behave? If you're honest, the number is probably smaller than you'd like to admit. This is because most of us read the way we eat junk food, quickly, mindlessly, for immediate gratification rather than long-term nourishment. We skim through books looking for interesting nuggets instead of wrestling with challenging ideas that might actually transform us. Seneca had a different approach. He believed we should linger on the works of the master thinkers. Instead of racing through dozens of mediocre books, he recommended finding a few extraordinary ones and studying them deeply enough to change how you see the world. Let's reimagine Jessica's approach. What if instead of 50 random books, she chose 5 books that directly addressed her biggest professional challenges? What if she spent 2 months with each book, not just reading it once, but studying it, taking notes, discussing it with colleagues, and most importantly, implementing its core ideas? Here's what would happen. Jessica would develop genuine expertise instead of superficial familiarity. She'd have deep, practical knowledge she could apply immediately. She'd build confidence based on real competence rather than false confidence based on information consumption. The Stoics approached reading as a form of mental training. When Marcus Aurelius read philosophy, he wasn't trying to impress anyone or hit arbitrary goals. He was looking for ideas that could help him become a better leader, a stronger person, a more virtuous human being. Every book was a tool for character development. This means asking different questions when you choose what to read. Instead of "what sounds interesting," ask, "What do I need to learn to become who I want to be?" Instead of "what's popular right now," ask, "What challenges am I facing that require new knowledge or perspectives?" Maybe you're struggling with communication at work. Instead of reading 5 different communication books, find the single best one recommended by people whose communication skills you respect. Then spend a month implementing 1 chapter at a time. Practice the techniques in real conversations. Take notes on what works and what doesn't. Make the book a laboratory for developing actual skills. Maybe you're dealing with financial stress. Find 1 comprehensive personal finance book that addresses your specific situation. Don't just read it, create a budget based on its principles. Set up the systems it recommends. Track your progress for 90 days. Let the book guide your financial behavior, not just occupy your reading time. The key is shifting from passive consumption to active implementation. The Stoics called this turning knowledge into wisdom. Information becomes wisdom only when it changes your behavior. Here's your new reading filter. Before starting any book, ask yourself 3 questions. Can I use this? How am I going to use this? What am I learning from it that I'll actually implement? If you can't answer these questions clearly, choose a different book. This also means being ruthless about quitting books that aren't delivering value. Seneca would rather read 1 transformative book 5 times than read 5 forgettable books once. If a book isn't teaching you something you can use to improve your life, put it down and find one that will. The goal isn't to become someone who reads a lot of books. The goal is to become someone who thinks more clearly, acts more effectively, and lives more intentionally because of what you've read. Start this week with 1 book that addresses your biggest current challenge. Read it slowly. Take notes. Discuss it with friends. Most importantly, implement at least 1 key idea before you move on to the next book. Make reading a practice of transformation, not just entertainment. Quality reading creates the mental clarity you'll need for our next habit, which involves one of the simplest yet most powerful practices the Stoics recommended. Habit 4. Walk daily to solve most life problems. Set the scene. David, a 29-year-old software engineer in Seattle, sits at his desk on the 15th floor of a downtown tech building, staring at code that refuses to work. He's been debugging the same function for 3 hours. His eyes are burning from the screen glare, and his shoulders feel like concrete blocks. His manager keeps asking for updates, his coffee has gone cold, and he's starting to panic about missing another deadline. David does what most of us do in this situation. He tries harder. He Googles more solutions, opens more browser tabs, and pushes through the mental fog with sheer determination. By 7 p.m., he's exhausted, frustrated, and no closer to solving the problem than when he started. But what if David did something that would seem completely counterproductive to his urgent situation? What if he closed his laptop, took the elevator down 15 floors, and walked around the block? Here's what would likely happen. 10 minutes into his walk, David would stop thinking about the code consciously and let his mind wander. 15 minutes in, he'd notice the way afternoon light hits the buildings on Pine Street. 20 minutes in, while watching people walk their dogs near Pike Place Market, the solution to his coding problem would suddenly appear in his mind, clear and obvious. This isn't magic. This is the power of walking that Seneca understood 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "We should take wandering outdoor walks so that the mind might be nourished and refreshed by the open air and deep breathing." The ancient Stoics didn't think of walking as just physical exercise. They understood it as a form of moving meditation that could solve problems, clarify thinking, and restore mental energy. There were entire schools of philosophy called peripatetic, which literally means walking around, where teachers and students would walk while discussing the deepest questions of human existence. Modern neuroscience has caught up with ancient wisdom. When you walk, especially outdoors, your brain shifts into what researchers call the default mode network, a state where different parts of your brain start communicating in new ways. This is when creative insights happen, when stuck problems suddenly become clear, when overwhelming situations start to feel manageable. But walking does more than just help you think better. It literally changes your brain chemistry. A 20-minute walk releases endorphins that improve your mood, reduces cortisol levels that cause stress, and increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that helps your brain form new neural connections. You're not just getting fresh air, you're giving yourself a natural antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication, and cognitive enhancer all at once. The Danish philosopher Kierkegaard, who struggled with depression his entire life, wrote a letter to his sister-in-law that captures the transformative power of walking. Above all, do not lose your desire to walk. Every day, I walk myself into a state of well-being, and I walk away from illness. I have walked myself into my best thoughts. I know of no thought so burdensome that one cannot walk away from it. Think about the problems you're currently facing. Maybe you're dealing with a difficult relationship decision. Maybe you're stuck on a creative project. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by your financial situation. Maybe you can't figure out how to have a difficult conversation with your boss. Here's what I want you to try. Instead of sitting at your desk or lying in bed ruminating about these problems, take them for a walk. Don't try to solve anything during the first 10 minutes. Just walk and let your mind drift. Notice your surroundings. Pay attention to your breathing. Let the rhythm of your steps calm your nervous system. Somewhere around the 15-minute mark, you'll often find that solutions start appearing. Not because you're trying to think of them, but because walking creates the mental space where insights naturally emerge. Problems that seemed impossible while you were sitting in your house suddenly seem manageable when you're moving through the world. The key is making this a daily practice, not just something you do when you're stuck. Seneca didn't wait until he had problems to go for his outdoor walks. He made them a regular part of his routine because he understood they prevented problems from becoming overwhelming in the first place. This means building walking into your day in a way that works for your schedule. Maybe it's a 15-minute walk before you start work, clearing your head for the day ahead. Maybe it's a lunch walk that breaks up the intensity of your workday. Maybe it's an evening walk that helps you process the day and transition to home life. The specific timing matters less than the consistency. Your brain needs regular movement to function optimally, just like your body needs regular water to stay hydrated. Walking isn't a luxury activity you do when you have extra time. It's essential maintenance for your mental health. But here's the crucial part. Leave your phone at home, or at least put it on airplane mode. The goal isn't to multitask or catch up on podcasts or return phone calls. The goal is to give your mind the space to wander, process, and restore itself. This requires disconnecting from the constant stream of information and stimulation that fills most of our waking hours. Start small if you need to. Even a 5-minute walk around your building can shift your mental state. Even walking to the mailbox and back can provide a reset moment in a chaotic day. The important thing is establishing the habit of using movement to solve problems instead of just thinking harder about them. Consequently, this daily walking practice will prepare your mind for our next essential habit: developing the concentration skills needed to focus deeply in our distraction-filled world. Habit 5. Focus deeply to beat any distraction. Here's the scenario. Maria, a 31-year-old marketing director in Miami, sits in her open concept office trying to write a crucial presentation for tomorrow's client meeting. Around her, colleagues are having loud phone calls. Someone's microwaving fish in the break room. Construction workers are jackhammering the sidewalk outside. And her phone buzzes every 30 seconds with Slack notifications, emails, and text messages. Maria tries to concentrate, but every time she gets into a flow state, something pulls her attention away. She starts a sentence, gets interrupted by a colleague asking about lunch plans, loses her train of thought, and has to start over. By the end of the day, she's exhausted, stressed, and has produced maybe 20 minutes of actual focused work despite being busy for 8 hours. Sound familiar? Maria's struggle is playing out in offices, coffee shops, and home offices across America. We live in what researchers call the attention economy, where every app, website, and device is specifically designed to fracture our focus and keep us constantly distracted. But Marcus Aurelius faced similar challenges 1600 years before smartphones existed. Running the Roman Empire meant dealing with constant interruptions. Generals needing decisions, senators demanding attention, citizens requiring justice, and messengers arriving with urgent news from distant provinces. Here's how the most powerful man in the ancient world learned to focus. Concentrate every minute like a Roman on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice. Notice what Marcus Aurelius is saying. Concentration isn't something that happens accidentally when you finally find the perfect quiet environment. Concentration is a skill you develop deliberately every minute, regardless of what's happening around you. The Stoics understood that the ability to focus deeply isn't just about productivity. It's about accessing your full human potential. When you can concentrate completely on the task in front of you, you enter what modern psychologists call flow state, where time seems to disappear, distractions fade away, and you produce your highest quality work with surprising ease. But developing this skill requires training, just like developing physical strength requires consistent exercise. You can't expect to focus deeply if you spend most of your day feeding your brain a constant stream of notifications, news updates, and random stimulation. Seneca faced this exact challenge in his apartment in Rome. He lived above a busy marketplace where vendors shouted all day, carts rumbled through the streets, and the noise was constant and chaotic. Instead of moving to a quieter location, Seneca used the noise as training for his mind. He wrote to a friend, "I force my mind to concentrate and I keep it from straying to things outside itself. All outdoors may be bedlam, provided there is no disturbance within." This is the key insight. Distraction isn't really about external noise. It's about internal discipline. You can be distracted in a silent library if your mind is untrained, and you can focus deeply in a noisy environment if you've developed mental strength. Let's imagine a different version of Maria's day. What if she started her morning with 10 minutes of focused breathing, training her attention like an athlete trains their muscles? What if she turned off all notifications for 90-minute blocks and committed to working on one task at a time? What if she practiced returning her attention to her work every time it wandered, treating each return as a mental rep that makes her stronger? Here's what would happen. Maria would discover that she can produce more high-quality work in 2 hours of deep focus than in 8 hours of scattered attention. She'd finish her presentation early and with confidence. She'd go home energized instead of depleted because focused work is actually less exhausting than distracted work. The habit of deep focus starts with creating what modern researchers call attention residue, the mental fragments that remain when you switch between tasks. Every time you check your phone, respond to a Slack message, or glance at your email while working on something else, you leave part of your attention behind. It takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. This means that if you're checking your phone every few minutes, you're never actually focused. You're living in a constant state of partial attention that makes everything harder and less satisfying. Start building your focus muscle by choosing one important task each day and protecting it with what I call focus boundaries. Turn off all notifications. Put your phone in another room. Close all browser tabs except the ones you need for the current task. Set a timer for 90 minutes and commit to working on only that one thing. When your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring it back to the task without judgment. Think of each return to focus as doing a bicep curl for your brain. You're literally strengthening the neural pathways that control attention. Seneca reached a level of concentration where he wrote, "You may be sure that you are at peace with yourself when no noise reaches you, when no word shakes you out of yourself, whether it's flattery or a threat or empty sound buzzing about you." You probably won't reach Seneca's level of unshakable focus immediately, but you can start building that capacity today. The goal isn't to eliminate all distractions from your environment. It's to develop the mental strength to stay focused despite distractions. This skill becomes especially important as you develop the next habit, because strong focus reveals what's truly controlling your life and what you need to break free from. Habit 6. Break free from what controls you. Imagine this. Alex, a 34-year-old finance professional in Boston, wakes up every morning and immediately reaches for his phone before his feet hit the floor. He scrolls through social media while brushing his teeth, checks the stock market during breakfast, and feels anxious if he can't get a Wi-Fi signal on the subway. Throughout his workday, he compulsively refreshes news websites, checks his investment portfolio dozens of times, and feels a physical urge to look at his phone every few minutes. Alex tells himself he's just staying informed and managing his investments responsibly. But here's what's really happening. Alex has lost the freedom to choose. He's not deciding to check his phone. He's compelled to check it. He's not choosing to refresh his portfolio. He's driven by anxiety to do it. What started as useful tools has become his masters. Seneca would have recognized Alex's situation immediately. "Show me a man who isn't a slave," the great Stoic philosopher once observed. He pointed out that even slave owners were chained to the responsibility of maintaining their estates. "This one's a slave to sex, another to money, to ambition," he continued. "We're all slaves to hope and fear. The most insidious form of slavery isn't physical chains. It's mental dependency. It's when you've lost the freedom to abstain, when you're controlled by cravings you didn't consciously choose to have." Think about your own life for a moment. What are you compelled to do that you don't really want to do? Maybe it's checking social media when you're bored. Maybe it's buying things you don't need when you're stressed. Maybe it's eating junk food when you're tired. Maybe it's watching Netflix when you plan to read. Maybe it's saying yes to commitments when you really want to say no. The tragedy isn't that these things are necessarily evil. It's that they've gained power over you. If you cannot freely choose not to do something, then that thing is stronger than you are. And according to Stoic philosophy, anything that's stronger than you becomes your master. Seneca understood that freedom isn't about having unlimited choices. It's about having the power to make conscious choices instead of being driven by unconscious compulsions. Pull yourself out of the ignorance of your addiction, he advised. Become aware of the power that this thing has over you. The first step is honest recognition. Alex had to admit that his phone checking wasn't strategic information gathering. It was anxiety-driven compulsion. He had to acknowledge that his constant portfolio monitoring wasn't prudent investing. It was fear-based addiction to control. This recognition is painful because it requires admitting that something external has gained internal control over you. But it's also liberating because you can't free yourself from something you refuse to acknowledge. Let's walk through Alex's liberation process. He started by tracking his phone usage for 1 week without trying to change anything. He was shocked to discover he was checking his phone over 150 times per day, often for less than 30 seconds at a time. He wasn't getting useful information. He was feeding a compulsion. Next, Alex experimented with controlled abstinence. He started leaving his phone in another room during meals. He designated the first hour after waking up as phone-free time. He put his investment apps in a folder that required extra steps to access, creating friction between impulse and action. The withdrawal was real. Alex felt anxious, bored, and restless without constant stimulation. But he also discovered something profound. Most of his urgent information needs were actually just mental habits masquerading as necessities. After 2 weeks of deliberate practice, something shifted. Alex regained the ability to choose when to engage with technology instead of being pulled by it constantly. He could sit in a meeting without feeling the phantom vibration of his phone. He could enjoy dinner without needing to photograph it for social media. This isn't about becoming a digital hermit or eliminating all pleasurable activities from your life. Some dependencies need complete elimination. If you're addicted to gambling or substances, abstinence might be the only path to freedom. But other dependencies can be transformed from compulsions into conscious choices. The key is distinguishing between what you choose to do and what you feel compelled to do. When you drink coffee because you enjoy the ritual and taste, that's a choice. When you drink coffee because you get headaches and feel irritable without it, that's dependency. Seneca practiced what he called poverty training, deliberately experiencing discomfort to maintain his freedom from comfort addiction. Once a month, he would eat simple food, wear basic clothes, and sleep on a hard surface to remind himself that he could be happy without luxury. You can apply this principle to modern dependencies. If you think you're not addicted to social media, try going without it for 3 days. If you believe your coffee habit is just a preference, skip it for a week. If you insist you're not dependent on streaming entertainment, spend a weekend without any screens. The goal isn't permanent deprivation, it's regaining conscious control. When you can freely choose to abstain from something, you're free to enjoy it without being enslaved by it. Start this week by identifying one thing that might have more control over you than you'd like to admit. Could be your phone, social media, online shopping, news consumption, or any habit that you do automatically rather than intentionally. Experiment with controlled breaks from this dependency. Notice what happens in your mind and body when you can't access your usual stimulation or comfort. Pay attention to the thoughts and feelings that arise when you're forced to sit with boredom or discomfort instead of immediately escaping into distraction. Habit 7. Choose progress over perfectionism. Allow me to set the scene. Rachel, a 27-year-old graphic designer in Portland, has been working on a logo design for a local coffee shop for 3 months. She's created 47 different versions, each one technically better than the last, but she can't bring herself to submit any of them. Every time she's about to send the final design, she notices a small flaw. The spacing could be tighter, the colors could be more vibrant, the font could be more unique. Meanwhile, the coffee shop owner has called twice asking for updates, and Rachel keeps saying she just needs a few more days to perfect it. But deep down, she knows those few more days will turn into weeks, and those weeks might turn into months. She's trapped in a creative prison of her own making, where nothing is ever good enough to see the light of day. The tragic irony? The coffee shop owner would have been thrilled with any of Rachel's first 10 designs. But now the project has dragged on so long that the relationship is strained and the excitement is gone. Rachel is suffering from what Winston Churchill called paralysis, the disease that he said was better spelled perfectionism. She's become so obsessed with creating something flawless that she's lost the ability to create anything at all. Epictetus understood this trap and offered a profound insight that could free Rachel immediately. Is it possible to be free from error? No, but it is possible to be a person stretching to avoid error. Read that again. Epictetus isn't saying you should lower your standards or accept mediocrity. He's saying that the goal isn't perfection. It's stretching toward improvement while accepting that perfection is impossible. This distinction changes everything. When your goal is perfection, you're aiming for something that doesn't exist, which means you'll never be satisfied with anything you create. When your goal is stretching to improve, you can feel proud of genuine progress while continuing to grow. The Stoics believed in excellence, but they understood that excellence and perfection are completely different things. Excellence is about doing your best work with the knowledge, skills, and resources you have right now. Perfection is about creating something that has no flaws, which is impossible because flaws are largely subjective and infinite. Consider what happens when Rachel shifts from perfectionist thinking to progress thinking. Instead of asking, "Is this logo perfect?" she asks, "Is this logo significantly better than what existed before? Does it solve the client's problem? Am I proud of the work I've done?" With these questions, Rachel would have submitted her design 2.5 months ago. The coffee shop would have opened with professional branding. Rachel would have gotten paid, received a great testimonial, and moved on to the next project where she could apply what she learned. But perfectionism doesn't just slow down creative work. It often prevents the work from happening at all. Perfectionism is actually a sophisticated form of procrastination that allows you to feel virtuous about not finishing things. Seneca faced this exact challenge with his writing. As one of Rome's most prolific authors, he could have spent years polishing each essay until it was flawless. Instead, he committed to sharing his ideas while they were good enough to be helpful, knowing that perfect writing that never gets published helps nobody. The Stoics had a saying, "The best is the enemy of the good." When you insist on the best possible version of something, you often prevent the good version from existing at all. And here's the paradox. The good version that actually gets completed and shared is infinitely more valuable than the perfect version that stays locked in your head. Think about the projects you've abandoned because they weren't perfect enough. The business idea you never launched because the plan wasn't comprehensive enough. The book you never wrote because you couldn't find the perfect opening sentence. The conversation you never had because you couldn't script the perfect words. The workout routine you never started because you couldn't design the perfect program. All of these abandoned projects represent lost opportunities for growth, learning, and impact. Perfectionism doesn't protect you from failure. It guarantees failure by preventing you from trying. Here's what's really happening beneath perfectionist thinking. Fear disguised as high standards. You're afraid that if you put something imperfect into the world, people will judge you. You're afraid that your work won't measure up to your vision. You're afraid that you'll be exposed as someone who doesn't know what they're doing. But the Stoics would ask, what's more courageous, creating something imperfect that might help people, or creating nothing at all because you're afraid of criticism? The habit of choosing progress over perfection requires adopting what Seneca called the discipline to ship, the courage to finish things and put them into the world, even when they're not perfect. This doesn't mean being careless or sloppy. It means doing your best work within reasonable time constraints, then having the courage to share it so you can learn from feedback and improve on the next project. Start practicing this week by identifying one project you've been perfectionist about. Set a firm deadline for completion, not perfection, completion. Then ask yourself, what would good enough look like for this project? What would meet the core requirements without requiring months of additional polishing? Create that version. Ship it. Submit it. Publish it. Share it. Then immediately start the next project where you can apply what you learned. The goal isn't to lower your standards. It's to channel your high standards into consistent action rather than paralyzing inaction. You'll produce more high-quality work by finishing 10 good projects than by abandoning 10 projects in pursuit of impossible perfection. This principle of progress over perfection becomes especially important as we explore our final habit: creating clarity and direction in your life through the power of intentional focus. Habit 8. Pick one word to guide every decision. Let's say this is your situation. Kevin, a 30-year-old business owner in Denver, sits in his cluttered home office surrounded by sticky notes, half-finished projects, and competing priorities. His consulting business is growing, but he feels pulled in 20 different directions. Should he focus on getting more clients or serving existing ones better? Should he hire employees or stay lean? Should he expand his services or specialize deeper? Should he move to a bigger office or work from home longer? Every decision feels equally important and equally urgent. Kevin spends more time debating what to do than actually doing anything. By the end of each week, he's exhausted from decision fatigue, but hasn't made meaningful progress on any front. He's busy but not productive, active but not effective. Kevin needs what Seneca called a port to sail toward. The great Stoic philosopher wrote, "If a man knows not which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Without a clear destination, all the effort in the world won't get you where you want to go. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle deeply. As Emperor of Rome, he faced countless decisions every day: military strategy, political appointments, legal judgments, resource allocation. Instead of treating each decision as a separate puzzle, he developed what he called epithets for the self, single words that served as touchstones for character and decision-making. Some of Marcus Aurelius's guiding words were upright, modest, straightforward, sane, and cooperative. When he faced difficult choices, he could filter them through these words. Does this decision align with being upright? Does this choice reflect modesty? Is this the straightforward path? This wasn't simplistic thinking, it was clarifying thinking. By having clear principles expressed in simple language, Marcus Aurelius could make complex decisions more quickly and consistently. Think about the decisions you've struggled with recently. How much mental energy have you spent going back and forth between options? How many times have you made a choice, then second-guessed yourself and changed direction? How often do you feel like you're making progress in multiple directions but not getting anywhere meaningful? Now imagine having a filter that could help you evaluate every choice quickly and confidently. Imagine having a North Star that could guide you through uncertainty and chaos. That's the power of choosing one word to live by. The key is selecting a word that addresses your specific challenges and aspirations. If you tend to overcommit and feel scattered, your word might be focus. If you struggle with taking action, your word might be courage. If you tend to be reactive and defensive, your word might be calm. If you avoid difficult conversations, your word might be honest. Let's walk through Kevin's process. He realizes that his biggest challenge isn't lack of opportunities or skills. It's lack of clarity about what he truly wants to build. After reflection, he chooses the word intentional as his guiding principle. Now, when Kevin faces decisions, he asks, what's the most intentional choice here? Should he take on every potential client? The intentional answer is no. He should focus on clients who align with his values and expertise. Should he expand into new service areas? The intentional answer is to master his current offerings first. Should he hire employees immediately? The intentional answer is to build systems and processes before adding complexity. The word intentional doesn't make Kevin's decisions for him, but it provides a consistent framework for evaluation. Instead of being paralyzed by infinite options, he can quickly identify choices that align with his core principle. Seneca practiced a similar approach with his own word choices. He often returned to concepts like virtue, wisdom, and tranquility when facing difficult situations. These weren't just abstract philosophical concepts. They were practical decision-making tools that helped him navigate the complexities of Roman politics and personal challenges. The habit of word-guided decision-making requires 3 steps. First, choose your word thoughtfully. Don't pick something that sounds inspiring but doesn't address your actual challenges. Pick something that speaks to who you need to become to solve your current problems. Second, make your word visible and accessible. Write it on an index card and put it on your desk. Set it as your phone wallpaper. Include it in your email signature. The goal is to encounter your word multiple times throughout the day so it stays active in your consciousness. Third, practice using your word as a decision filter. When you face choices, ask, which option best embodies my word? This doesn't mean your word should dictate every decision, but it should inform your thinking and help you maintain consistency with your values. Some powerful words to consider. Present, if you tend to rush through life without experiencing it. Patient, if you struggle with wanting immediate results. Generous, if you tend to be self-focused. Simple, if your life feels overly complicated. Brave, if fear holds you back from important actions. The beauty of this practice is that it grows stronger over time. The more you use your word as a decision filter, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, you won't need to consciously think about it. You'll naturally gravitate toward choices that align with your chosen principle. Marcus Aurelius discovered that having clear epithets for the self didn't limit his options. It liberated him from decision paralysis and allowed him to act with confidence and consistency. When you know who you're trying to become, you can make decisions that move you in that direction. Start this practice by choosing one word that captures what you most need to develop or embody right now. Write it down somewhere you'll see it daily. For the next week, use it as a filter for at least one decision each day. Notice how having this clarity changes both the speed and quality of your choices. Therefore, with these 8 Stoic habits as your foundation, you're ready to build the life you've always known was possible. Start building these Stoic habits today. Here's the truth that Marcus Aurelius discovered on those cold Germanic battlefields. Transformation doesn't require perfect conditions, unlimited time, or extraordinary circumstances. It requires 8 simple habits practiced consistently by ordinary people who decide they're ready to become extraordinary. Think about where you were when this video started versus where you are right now. You now have a complete system for rebuilding your life from the inside out. You know how to build mental toughness through daily exercise. You understand why asking for help makes you stronger, not weaker. You've learned to read for transformation instead of just information consumption. You know that a simple daily walk can solve problems that hours of overthinking cannot. You understand how to focus deeply even when everything around you is chaos. You've discovered how to break free from the dependencies that control your life. You know why progress beats perfection every single time. And you have the power to create clarity and direction through one carefully chosen word. But here's what separates the people who change their lives from the people who just collect good ideas. Action. Right now, today, before you watch another video or read another article or listen to another podcast, pick one habit and start. Maybe you'll do 20 push-ups before checking your phone tomorrow morning. Maybe you'll send one message asking for help with something you've been struggling with alone. Maybe you'll choose one book that addresses your biggest challenge and commit to reading it deeply instead of skimming 5 mediocre ones. Maybe you'll take a 15-minute walk without your phone and see what thoughts emerge. Maybe you'll turn off all notifications for 90 minutes and discover what deep focus feels like. Maybe you'll identify one dependency that's been controlling you and experiment with a temporary break. Maybe you'll finish one project that's been sitting at 90% complete because it's not perfect yet. Maybe you'll choose your word for this next chapter of your life and write it somewhere you'll see it every day. The specific habit you start with matters less than the fact that you start. Each habit builds on the others, creating a compound effect that transforms not just what you do, but who you become. Epictetus had a question that cuts straight through procrastination and excuses. How much longer are you going to wait to demand the best of yourself? The ancient Stoics believed that within every person lies the potential for greatness. Not the kind of greatness that gets you famous or wealthy, but the kind that lets you sleep peacefully knowing you lived with courage, wisdom, and integrity. These 8 habits are your tools for unlocking that potential. They're not complicated, but they are powerful. They don't require special equipment or perfect circumstances, but they do require commitment. If this video helped you see a path forward, hit the like button and subscribe to Stoic Vivu for more practical wisdom that actually works in real life. Share this with someone who's ready to stop settling for less than they're capable of becoming. Your transformation starts now. Choose your first habit and begin today.